In this video, we'll see how to add and subtract integers. So first, let's think about what it means to add. When we add, we put things together, we combine things, we gain sometimes. But now when we have positive and negative numbers, we need to think about it a little more deeply. I add a positive. When I think about this, I think about like, oh, I add something good. Well, if I add something good, then my happiness increases. So my happiness goes up. So I'm going to move right on the number line. But now if I add a negative, right, something bad happens to me, I get a penalty or something like that. If I add a negative, then I'm going to move down on the number line or I'm going to move left on the number line. So let's see how this could work. I always like to think about a number line when I'm adding or subtracting with integers. And so I always start with that first integer. So if I have negative 4 in this first example, I'm going to start here at negative 4. And I'm going to add a negative 5. I'm adding something bad, so I'm going to move 5 units to the left. So I'm going to go back 5 units to the left, and I end up here at negative 9. Let's take a look at the next example. I have negative 3 plus 7. Again, I'm going to start here at negative 3. Now I'm adding a positive. So if I'm adding something good, I'm going to move up on the number line. And if I add 7 to negative 3, well, it takes me 3 to get to 0 and 4 more, and I'll end up at positive 4. Now let's look at the third example, 4 plus a negative 10. Again, I'm starting here at the first number, 4, and I'm adding a negative. I get a penalty of 10. So if I add that negative, I'm going to have to go back on the number line. I'm going to have to go back 10. So it takes me 4 to get to 0, and then another 6 make up that 10. So 4 plus negative 10 is negative 6. And finally, this last example, let's see what happens if we have more than two numbers that we're adding up together. So I've got 9 plus negative 3 plus negative 7. I'm going to start here at 9. I'm adding a negative, so I know I go left, and I'm going to go left 3, and I end up here at positive 6. I'm adding another negative, so I'm going to go left again, and I'm going to go left 7, and I end up here at negative 1. Now let's think about subtracting. Subtracting means taking away or losing, right? And all of this is going to basically just be the opposite of what we did when we added. So if I subtract a positive, I take away something good, then I lose, right? So I'm going to move to the left on the number line. But if I subtract a negative, if I take away something bad, like something bad would be like owing somebody money, and if that person takes away that debt from you, that means you've actually got more money. You're gaining. Or if something bad happens and it gets taken away, you feel better. So you're going to move up the number line. That's going to move right on the number line. So subtracting a negative moves right on the number line. Let's take a look here at 2 minus 7. I'm starting at 2. I'm taking away a positive, so I move left. If I move left 7, I end up here at negative 5. But if I've got negative 4 minus 5, I'm going to start at negative 4, and I'm going to move 5 again to the left because I'm subtracting a positive. So I end up at negative 9. Let's look at the third example, 6 minus negative 8. Well, I'm going to start here at 6, and then I'm going to subtract a negative 8. Well, that means I'm taking away something bad. That means it makes me feel better, so I'm going to move up the number line. And in fact, if I moved up the number line, I would get all the way to a positive 14. And then the last example on this page, negative 3 minus negative 3 minus 10. I'm going to start at negative 3, and I'm going to take away a negative 3. I'm taking away a negative, so I'm going to move to the right on the number line. If I take away negative 3, I'm going to be at 0. But then if I'm at 0 and I take away 10, I need to move left on the number line, and I end up at negative 10. Another way to think about subtraction is to rewrite it as addition. So when you subtract, you're basically adding the opposite of what's there. So what do I mean by that? Well, 2 minus 7, I could rewrite this as 2 plus a negative 7. They're both the same thing. We both get negative 5, no matter which way you think about it. Negative 4 minus 5, I could rewrite this as negative 4 plus a negative 5. Well, negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. Negative 4 plus negative 5 is also negative 9. Now here's where it's really helpful, and I often like to do this if I see that I'm subtracting a negative. 6 minus a negative 8, right, is the same thing as 6. I'm going to add the opposite, so change the subtraction to addition. And what's the opposite of negative 8? It's positive 8. 6 plus 8 is 14. Oftentimes it's easier to think about subtracting a negative as just adding that positive number. And then finally, negative 3 minus negative 3, that would be negative 3 plus a positive 3, which is 0. All right, here are a few for you to practice on your own. Hit pause, do the problems, and then hit play and see if you did them right. So first, let's look at negative 13 plus negative 5. Negative 13 plus negative 5 is negative 18. And then I've got negative 18 minus negative 12. I'm going to rewrite that minus a negative as adding 12. So negative 18 plus 12 is negative 6. Next, I have 22 minus 30 plus negative 6. Notice when I've got these addition and subtraction problems, I'm just doing the problems from left to right. So I'm going to start with 22 minus 30. Well, if I'm on 22 on the number line, if I'm at positive 22 and I have to take away 30, I'm going to move 30 to the left. I'm going to end up at negative 8. Negative 8 plus a negative 6. I'm at negative 8. I'm adding a negative 6. If I add a negative, I also move to the left, so I end up at negative 14. And that's how we add and subtract integers.